And we welcome you live to episode number 3 of the Primetime Rundown right here on Blog Talk Radio. Simulcasting live for you on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Alongside Nick Partain, I'm Joey Jarzynka. We do have some unfortunate news to share as our third co-host, Tyler Adele, will not be joining us no longer. Unfortunately had to leave due to an issue with, I think, personal, but we do wish him well, and it'll be the two of us for now, and we have a lot to talk about today on episode number 3. Unfortunately, I had a personal issue last week. Could not get this show done, but we're back for the first time in a couple of weeks. We got a lot to talk about, and the biggest thing, Nick, that I know I want to start off with is the bombshell of a decision from the NFL that has not only been brutal to certain people, certain athletes, Ray Rice being one, Tyreek Hill being another one, Adrian Peterson. 2 out of the 3 have gone on to play in this league again. And Tyreek Hill is going to be that third man about to play in the NFL come August. And the decision came down from the NFL this morning where Tyreek Hill was not found of anything, where the NFL came out and said this statement, quote, "Over the past 4 months, we have conducted a comprehensive investigation of allegations regarding Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Throughout this investigation, the NFL's primary concern has been the well-being of the child. Our understanding is that the child is safe and that the child's ongoing care is being directed and monitored by the Johnson County District Court and the Johnson County Department for Children and Families. In conducting our investigation, we have taken great care to ensure that we do not interfere with the county's proceedings or compromise the privacy or welfare of the child in any way. The information developed in the court proceeding is confidential and has not been shared with us, and the court has sealed all law enforcement records. Local law enforcement authorities have publicly advised that the available evidence does not permit them to determine who caused the child's injuries. Similarly, based on the evidence presently available, the NFL cannot conclude that Mr. Hill violated the personal conduct policy. Accordingly, he may attend Kansas City's training camps and participate in all club activities." Not end quote, but we'll stop there for now. We've gone on to say this with multiple things. We've gone on to say this with multiple people. My opinion on this is that this has gone on for way too long. Zeke Elliott was suspended for 8 games a couple of seasons ago due to domestic violence. Anything to do with a child, in my opinion, you should be thrown out of the league. I don't want to get political with this. I don't want to get too in-depth in this, but I think that because this is such a demanding topic in terms of the welfare of a child and the welfare of human beings, I think that the NFL really screwed up here again.
Yeah, with no conclusive evidence either way, but that voicemail ringing out, how do you let that guy play again? I don't understand. Not only the things he said that could have happened to the child that came out in that voicemail, the things he said to, I'm not sure if she was his fiancée then or his wife or whatever, but things he said to her was ridiculous. Like, how is he allowed to still play? I don't get it. How is there no suspension whatsoever for what happened here? Too much went on for them to be able to say, yeah, this is fine just because we can't find anything. At the very least say, we're going to keep investigating, let this go on for a while. The fact that he's going to be able to go to training camp, play week 1, and everything's going to be fine is crazy to me. There are too many other athletes that could love the opportunity that Tyreek Hill is getting, and he's getting it when he really shouldn't be allowed to have it.
Tyreek Hill came out with a letter this morning on Twitter. 18,000 likes and 3,700 retweets on the letter that says, quote, "The last few months have been very difficult for me, especially as a father. The false allegations originally reported in March were highly publicized and involved the care of my son. I am grateful for so many things and grateful for so many people who have supported me during this challenging time. I fully respect and accept the NFL's decision. To the family, to the friends, fans and family that I have made in Kansas City. I love you, and thank you for your continued support. We're not going to go on with the rest of the letter. We will actually touch on this to my children, my beautiful children. I love you all dearly, and I promise you all that I will continue to strive to be the best father, the best friend, the best role model, and the best mentor that I could be. Well, between you and I, Nick, I don't know if the children should be listening to that voicemail when they get old enough to listen, because that is truly, from when I remember I heard that, and I know that when I was hosting Beyond the Game last year or 2 years ago at St. John's, there was a topic actually on Zeke, and that was the time when Zeke was suspended for 8 games, and there was the whole investigation. And basically what it came down to is that I don't think he should be playing in the league anymore. He shouldn't get a second chance. I think there should be a zero-tolerance policy when it has to do with domestic violence, when it has to do with hitting a woman, when it has to do with hitting a baby, especially your own, hitting a child. I don't care who it is. You don't hit children. I get you discipline them. You could hit children that way. You discipline them, but you don't beat them. Back when Adrian Peterson with the lamp and the wire with his kid when he was in Minnesota, and he didn't play another down for Minnesota after that. And it did turn out, obviously, that was his UFA year, where he was an unrestricted free agent, then eventually moved on to
Washington.
To New Orleans first.
Oh, that's right.
And then was traded to Washington.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, was released and then signed in Washington. But not too long ago, there's a lot of things going on in the NFL that we may not agree on, and one of which is this: Tyreek Hill. He will be coming back. He will be the #1 wide receiver in Kansas City, probably a top 10 fantasy choice in the wide receiver spots. We'll get to that on our fantasy show in August, in our football show in September. It's coming close, and he fully, quote, he fully respects and accepts the NFL's decision.
Obviously, they want him back.
It almost seems like that he's guilty, because he says he fully respects it and accepts it. No, would you respect or would you accept the fact if you were suspended? I'm sure you would, but I don't know if these are false allegations. I think that there were certain things that might have happened. I'm not going to say anything more where I could be saying the fact that it could be, we could be missing something.
I just think even with missing something, there's enough there that he should have at least been suspended.
Kareem Hunt.
Well, that was pretty damning evidence. Very apparent something happened from that video.
And not only that, but it was also a video too. From what we have here is a voicemail, obviously, that was left on his fiance's or his girlfriend, I believe it was his girlfriend's at the time, voicemail. Something completely disrespectful. Major League Baseball Hall of Fame weekend, Mariano Rivera is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame tomorrow. And the first unanimous voter ever. Unanimous vote getter.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be more proud.
Yeah.
With number 42. And every time I think of that, with you being here, I remember us going to get that bobblehead in his final year.
We waited so long.
And
it's like three-quarters of the old Yankee Stadium waited around this.
That was the new. That was 2013. Yeah.
It was the new one. Yeah.
That was the year I graduated high school. And
awesome.
And for those who don't know, the AT&T bobblehead series that came out in 2011, actually, at Yankee Stadium, 2 years after it opened. They still have it going on today. Tomorrow, I think, is tonight or yesterday was David Cohn's.
Yesterday was Cohn's.
Right, yesterday was Cohn's bobblehead that came out. And
I wouldn't put ice cream on it.
The bobblehead that we waited for 6 years ago is going for a lot of money, because it was the truck had crashed or the truck had broken down. I think it was on the Turnpike, the New Jersey Turnpike. It was en route, and and it was a big deal when we were there that night. And that was when I had, at the time, a partial plan of season tickets. And we waited on that line for a very long time. And it was wrapped around the entire building. And a majority of the fans that were there that night, they got their Mariano Rivera bobblehead that will live in infamy for the rest of eternity with them. That bobblehead could be one of the most valuable bobbleheads. And again, I don't want to bring attention to both me or you, but that was a fun night.
Yeah.
And seeing Mariano Rivera all of our life until 2013, until Andy Pettitte and Derek Jeter came off to get him at Yankee Stadium to close out his Yankees career, or to close out his Yankee Stadium career, rather. Obviously playing in center field in his final game in Kansas City. Mike Mussina also.
I still can't believe he made it. He just never seemed like a Hall of Famer to me. He never had that one of the best pitchers in baseball kind of thing. Like, he was consistently good for a really long time, so the numbers added up, but I don't know. I wish MLB was a little more strict with their Hall of Fame guys they let in, because sometimes it just seems like it's, alright, you played a while, alright. Seems fine. He was never one of the best pitchers in baseball. I just can't understand how you could be in the Hall of Fame. And it's not like it was that pitcher dependent of an era.
76.7% was the vote that he got, and this was his 6th and final time. According to the Washington Post, his ERA, 3.68, ranks 585th all-time among pitchers, with at least 1,000 pitches pitched. Tied there with the great Gio Gonzalez, Harry Gumbert, Dave Kozlow. Those guys are not Hall of Famers. Do we expect them to ever be Hall of Famers? I don't think so. He did win, or if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe he won Cy Young.
No.
Ever. He did have 6 top 5 finishes. He did have a runner-up. He was a runner-up in 2001 for the ERA title. He never got a no-hitter. He never got a perfect game, even though he did have 2. He was 2 of them lost perfect game bids in the 9th inning. I remember. He had 270 wins, 5 All-Star Game appearances, 7 Gold Gloves. And after 1992 with the Orioles, his first full season, he never posted sub-3 ERA until 2008 and his 18th and final season. And he never won 20 games. Do you think he should be in the Hall of Fame?
No. No. Nothing against him. Good pitcher. Loved him as the Yankee. Competitor. Probably one of the best fielding pitchers of all time. You gotta give him that. Gold Gloves is exceptional. He was incredible as a fielding pitcher, but there's not a lot of value there. I don't see how that makes up a Hall of Fame resume. A lot of it was cumulative numbers that really didn't have to do much with things that you look at, like an ERA. Like, it came down to the fact that he pitched for a long time. He was consistently good. He didn't have many really bad seasons. The problem is he just didn't have a ton of great ones. He never had like those big moments if he would have completed a no-hitter or a perfect game. Not that that changes things all that much, but to me, the big part of it was just, I don't think his resume is there, and he wasn't one of the best pitchers in baseball. That's always the first thing I think of when you say, should this guy be a Hall of Famer? If I think of him as one of the best players at his position, or in his general position for an era, that comes off to me as a Hall of Famer. Mike Mussina, I just don't think was that. He was up there as a good pitcher. He was never a guy that you were like, I don't want him on my team. Maybe at the very end of his Yankee career, before he had that 21 season, he started going downhill, but he was never an albatross. He was never a terrible player or anything like that, so you have to commend the fact that he was able to let it ride for that long, but to me, he just never had the peak that you look for. So, no, I wouldn't have voted for him.
Other players that made it in, the late Doc Halladay, who, in my opinion, is more than deserving.
Yeah, well, that guy had a peak. He was utterly dominant, just completely ridiculous pitcher, and a non-pitcher's friendly park. I mean, he plays on that AstroTurf. It makes it so much harder on pitchers, especially Halladay, who pitches a lot for ground balls. So he was ridiculous, dominant, goes to Philly, dominates in the playoffs, perfect game and a no-hitter the same year. The no-hitter being in the playoffs, his first playoff
against the
start.
Reds.
The guy was lights out. He didn't have as long a career as maybe Mike Mussina, but his peak was absurd. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball for a long enough time. Numbers back it up. Legit Hall of Famer, no questions asked.
And he's going in as a Toronto Blue Jay as well. No surprise there. Number 32 will never be worn again in Toronto. But it is our 5/16 sports update here on the Primetime Rundown, and a couple of things that we do want to touch on here, Nick. Jacob Trouba, New York Rangers, 7 years, worth $56 million, $8 million AAV. Milan Lucic from Edmonton Oilers traded one for one to the Calgary Flames, going from one Alberta team to the next for James Neal, swapping two bad contracts. James Neal, $5.75 million for the next 4 years. Milan Lucic, a full $6 million for the next 4 years. James Neal to Edmonton also includes a draft pick to Edmonton. To the Flames, includes a draft pick because of the extra $250,000 per year, so it's about $1 million extra if you add it all up. So yeah, that's our 5/16 sports update. We'll get you the 6/31 sports update, obviously 5/16, 5/16. Our area code, or the area code on Nassau, and suffix 631. So if you're just joining us here on Blog Talk Radio, cannot thank you all enough for tuning in. I'm Joey Jarzynka alongside Nick Partain. Episode number 3 right here, Blog Talk Radio, I-95 Sports Entertainment Network. Give us a call, 213-943-3594. We are here until 7 o'clock this evening. We're not done yet with the Hall of Fame talk. We look at Edgar Martinez, Lee Smith, Harold Baines. Edgar Martinez, someone who, in my opinion, is more than capable of being in. I think he's more deserving of it than Mike Mussina, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't love Edgar Martinez either. I almost think this one has a lot of on reputation.
Obviously different positions, but
yeah,
still.
I think the same thing. Was Edgar Martinez ever one of the best players in baseball? Like he's one of the best DHs of all time.
Mm-hmm.
He was a great pure hitter. He never played the field. He hit well his whole career, but I don't know. He's another one of those guys that I just feel like the Hall of Fame is letting too many guys in. Baseball Hall of Fame is absurd in that they let so many guys in with like decent resumes because they have the voting go on for so long, and it's more of, well, how many votes did it take for the guy to get in to really determine how good they are, when really, if you don't get in the first 2 times, why are you getting in? You're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. It shouldn't require 15 votes. It should just be, is he or isn't he? 1 or 2 votes. That's it. There shouldn't be a limit of how many guys you can vote for. It really could be decided on a year-by-year basis. 1 ballot every year. You're on it once. If you get 75% of the vote, you're in. That's it. Playing around with this allows guys to get in that really don't deserve it because they can say, all right, I need to fill the rest of my ballot here. Let me vote for some other guys. I don't think Edgar Martinez is a Hall of Fame level player. Great hitter, but I just don't see it.
312 batting average, 309 home runs, 2,055 career games with the Mariners. If you're trying to tell me that Edgar Martinez can go in, there is no question Ichiro is going to get in.
Ichiro, yeah.
Ichiro,
absolutely one of the best players in the league.
3,000 hits combined between Japan and here. He also, yes, he did play on 3 different teams.
Yeah.
Mariners, Yankees, and Marlins.
For the most part, though, he's a Mariners.
Oh, of course he
is.
And he is.
Little dinky stints at the end.
And he also played, actually, earlier this year in February at the Tokyo Dome, where he actually finished out his career. He wanted, or the Mariners wanted to give him one more standing ovation. I think what a way to put him out back in February, or to have him go out rather. Edgar Martinez, 312, 309 home runs. Yeah, I do agree. But then again, this is another stat that I do agree with you, Nick, here. Edgar Martinez never played more than 100 games in the majors until he was 27 years old. And yes, he obviously did completely... he did explode on the scene at the time. 18 seasons in a Mariners uniform. The first ever player to spend his entire career with the Mariners and get into Cooperstown. Good for him, in my opinion. But
I'm not nothing against him as a person.
No. There is nothing against him as a person. The way I see it is, the way I see it too is, and this is something back years ago, when I remember when I had gone to the Football Hall of Fame, when my family was still a family. We had gone to see Troy Aikman, Reggie White, Harry Carson get inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I remember that it was Ray Guy, legendary punter from years ago. Or so what I thought he was legendary when I was 11. And Ray Guy was passed up multiple times. He was an Oakland Raider. Didn't get into the Hall of Fame, and I don't think to this day he's in. I have to look that up now. But at the time, he is 69 years old.
Nice.
And not only he actually did get into the Hall of Fame in 2014, but his first year of eligibility was when he retired 1986 he retired. So his first year of eligibility was 1991. So for almost 15 years, he didn't get it. 3-time Super Bowl champion, 7-time Pro Bowler, 6-time first teamer, and he was a punter. He got in 8 years after I was there, and he was already passed up 15 times. Second team All-Pro, 1979 and 80. His average was 42.4 yards per punt. Okay. He was in the College Football Hall of Fame. But the reason why I bring this up, folks, is because I do agree with you, Nick. And I think that there should be a limit on how many times that you can be eligible to get into the Hall of Fame. And that's the problem with football. Baseball, at least you have a certain amount of times, then you're done.
Yeah,
then there's, I think it's...
like that other committee, like, oh, we didn't think he was a Hall of Famer this many times. Let's go to these random other people that are going to make this decision. What? And if they don't get in that way, are we just going to start calling people's houses and be like, yeah, is this guy a Hall of Famer? We are all not sure. We all say no, but we're looking for any excuse to squeeze him in. Just crazy.
That's the part where I see it as one of the greatest punters of all time. Could he have been snubbed for 15 straight years, or did he just not deserve it, or did they overlook these punters years ago?
He's still a punter.
He is a punter, but...
He's the greatest punter of all time, in my opinion, to get in the Hall of Fame. Like, come on.
Well, he did, and he did get it, but he got in 2014, so it was over 20 years. It was 23 years that he was out of the league and he did not get into it. He got in 2014. There's a lot of talk as well with the NBA. Just like the last couple of weeks, last week we weren't on the air, but 2 weeks ago when Kawhi Leonard that night broke the news around 2 or 3 a.m., California time, 12 a.m. At midnight on the West Coast, he announced that he was going to the Clippers. We haven't spoken about this since then, Nick.
Oh.
Not only did we not speak about this, we also haven't said that Oklahoma City traded Paul George for 5 picks, Shea Alexander-Gilgeous, and also traded Russell Westbrook. So they're in full rebuild mode and still have Chris Paul on their roster. Andre Robertson, Steven Adams. I'm not saying they're going to be good. I'm saying that those guys are still there.
Gallinari.
Danilo Gallinari as well. And you know what? And on paper, you could vie for maybe 15 wins.
No, they're not going to be that bad. Come on.
Okay, 20 wins.
I don't think they'll be better than that. I don't think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. This
Oh.
team's still well coached. Chris Paul's not awful, but like he wasn't able to run his own show in Houston. He had to kind of stand by and watch James Harden. So while he didn't look as great this year, he wasn't allowed to do much. Chris Paul will be tutoring a young point guard. They haven't been able to clear all these big names off their cap yet to fully rebuild. The picks are in the future, so I think the team now isn't going to be like overridden by young players that are going to make them lose as many games as like the Knicks last year, or the Suns have been losing, or the Bulls. But there are veterans here who are going to play. Their starting lineup is going to have Chris Paul, probably Andre Robertson, Danilo Gallinari, Steven Adams. These are names. These are NBA players. Steven Adams is a good player. Pick and roll, Chris Paul, Steven Adams. If Danilo Gallinari stays healthy, he's all right as a wing. Like, this isn't a horrible team. They're not a playoff team.
They're not a playoff team, but
they're not going to make noise. But they're not going to be an embarrassment. They're not going to bottom out unless they can find a way to trade some of these guys mid-season. We'll see what happens, because the big day for Chris Paul is December 15th. So on December 15th, guys that sign contracts this offseason can be traded, and it opens up a whole new world of possibility for the Thunder to move him. So we'll see. If Chris Paul's traded in December, it changes a lot of things.
Oklahoma City owns, I'm going to read the draft picks that they own. 2020 first-round draft pick via Denver. 2021 first round from Miami. 2021 first-round swap via Houston in the in the Russell Westbrook Chris Paul trade. 2022 first round via LA. 2023 first round swap with LA. 2023 first round via Miami. 2024, two of them first rounders via LA and Houston. 2025 first round swaps via LA and Houston, and 2026 first rounders via LA and Houston.
Plus all their own picks.
And their own picks. This team will be good within 2 to 3 years.
I can see it, especially with the point guard.
Do they? But the problem is that, and I agree with you. The one problem though is that, are they going to open up their wallets?
Yeah, they just paid the highest luxury tax in the league last year. You get them good, they're going to pay for it. The owner has no problem with that. He understands the business. He's going to pay. They're going to get out of the tax eventually at some point this year. They're going to make sure they don't pay it. I think they're currently in it right now, but they don't have to make that big a move to get out of the tax. So they'll figure that out eventually, whether it's like a deadline deal, kind of like the Rockets did last year, where even though they were competitive, they didn't want to pay the tax. But the Thunder owners will pay for it. It's going to take some figuring out how to do the roster, because all those draft picks can't be on the roster at the same time. Eventually they're going to swing a deal for bigger name players, but for the time being, it's going to be move on from Chris Paul. They have Gallinari and Robertson will be off their books next year. So really next year is going to be the year where I think it's going to be a pretty barren team. They're going to really bottom out. They might even trade Steven Adams. We'll see. It'll be a lot easier for them to trade a guy like that once teams have cap space again. They go into next summer. Steven Adams is a great player. They might want to hang on to him through this little bit of building, but they might also want to move him. So we'll see. Next year is the year they really get to make big decisions, because they'll really be able to clear their books off. Because once Chris Paul and Gallinari and Robertson are gone...
And don't forget Steven Adams, too.
He's off the books?
No, Steven Adams... Oh, no, I think you're talking...
I was saying if they trade Steven Adams, yeah, but they might keep him. You don't know. He's still a young player. They have a couple of years left with him. They don't have to trade him.
Chris Paul's
especially
also...
with all the picks they have. They really looking for more picks?
Chris Paul is making the at the max at 34 years old. $38,506,482. Steven Adams, right now, has a 7.5% trade kicker, 25,842,697. Danilo Gallinari at 31 years old, 22,615,559. Almost close to over 50% go to 3 players. And they are still over the cap by almost $27 million.
Yeah, but then it was not the tax over the cap, isn't it?
Right. Their estimated luxury tax bill is $11 million. Luxury tax space is $4.7 million. I do see Chris Paul going to Miami at some point. The NBA this season, this upcoming season, in my opinion, is one of the best years that we are going to have since LeBron James, quote, took his talents, end quote, to Miami. And Nick, you and I are both, let's say, we're displeased with LeBron James. We'll call it that. Kevin Durant, not too far from there. I think I might actually watch this year's NBA.
I think you have to. It's going to be so much fun.
There's
so much to watch.
There are so many teams that have new duos. And the crazy part is that the 2018-19 NBA champions, the Toronto Raptors, still technically have a big two. Marc Gasol, Kyle Lowry, yes, they do need help. Pascal Siakam.
Siakam's the real.
Siakam is.
Siakam and Lowry.
That is fair. But Marc Gasol did come in clutch in the finals at times.
Yeah.
He was much better, obviously years ago. The Mike Conley time in Memphis. He exercised his $25 million player option. There's a lot of duos this year in the NBA, and truthfully, I could even say the Knicks too. Not kidding.
No.
Think about it. If R.J. Barrett could become the player nice and early that every Knick fan hopes for, you have him and Julius Randle, who is proven. We know he's good. I know he's good from the Lakers. I know he's good from the Pelicans. I also know that the Brooklyn Nets are not going to go far this year without Kevin Durant. They're going to do something, though. I say they'll get back to the playoffs. Will they? I think it'll be another first-round exit for them.
I can see it.
We'll see what Kyrie Irving does. The Clippers, as we said, that duo of Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, the Lakers, Davis James, and still Golden State. It's a wide-open NBA this year. And something that I want to touch upon here is Milwaukee. And Milwaukee is now the Toronto Raptors of last year. That it's their berth, or it's their Eastern Conference crown to lose.
Yeah, I would say so.
Milwaukee is, in my opinion, they're the best team in the East.
I'd say they're the best team in the NBA. I think they currently are the best team in the NBA. You have to include continuity as a big part of this. I think there are a lot of good teams. I'd put Milwaukee up top right now, though. I'd say they're my number one. A lot of people are jumping all over the Lakers and Clippers right now, and we have to see how those role players fit before we can announce something like that. This isn't the Miami Heat Big Three, where they also got Shane Battier and already had Udonis Haslem and Mario Chalmers, and this team was clearly the most talented in the NBA when it was put together. The Lakers and Clippers are up there. They're in that top echelon, top five for sure. I'm going to take the continuity of the Bucks and put it ahead of the both of them. And I put the Nuggets up there too. Look at the Nuggets, bringing back a fantastic team already. Young ascending players. You add Jeremy Grant, and Michael Porter Jr. is going to play this year, who was one of the most talented players in last year's draft, who was only pushed down because of an injury. He comes up as a superb player. They're loaded all five positions with some great bench guys. The Nuggets could be a team that could actually end up being a Golden State type powerhouse if their cards end up dropping the right way.
This is something that I want to bring up too. A team that nobody should be sleeping on, and it's simple. You cannot sleep on the Utah Jazz.
I like that defense.
50 and 32 last year. They ranked 4th
defensively.
Offensively. Right, yes, sorry. Defensively, yes. My mistake. Rebounds per game, 9th. Assists per game, 8th in the NBA. In opponents' points per game, they ranked 4th. That's what it was. I had a brain fart there. My apologies. Points per game, 17th. They finished the year in the Western Conference as the number 5 seed. They come back with a good supporting cast as well. And I don't know if we are forgetting. You have Donovan Mitchell. You have Mike Conley now. And the best part about this that I love.
Joe Ingles.
No.
Whoa, don't hate on Joe Ingles. He's the accountant of the NBA. That man looks like he should be doing my job.
Listen. The one that's only 15 miles away, who led in the CAA to a 26-8 record at Hofstra University, Justin Wright Foreman. Number 3, he's a guard. He's going to be, we'll see if he's a point guard of the future. Him signing in the NBA, there's hope. He might not play. Obviously, he's got a lot of hoops to, no pun intended, hoops to jump over. Mike Conley, that massive contract. That whole deal was traded from Memphis to Utah. Whatever happened to Dante Exum? Remember he was supposed to be big at times?
Yeah, he just didn't pan out.
Didn't pan out
But,
5 years
still
ago.
pretty young, isn't he?
Undrafted.
He get injuries too, so like, he's only 24 years old. So.
Yeah, he's my age. Yeah. Dante Exum, he was actually drafted. My mistake, he was drafted. Yeah, he was from Australia, 2014 round 1, pick number 5. Yeah, I do remember that. He hasn't panned out to what he was supposed to be. But how about, again, the Frenchman, Rudy Gobert? He's no little guy.
A stifle tower.
He's
Damn, I'm not making that one up.
I know that. He's 7'1", 245 pounds,
Nimble.
and he's 27 years old. 27, wearing 27. Absolutely unbelievable.
What's unbelievable about him is the type of center he is, being a dying breed. He's so good at being that old school center that nobody's overlooking that team whatsoever. He's incredible. Easily the best defensive player in the NBA. Single-handedly. Like, he runs defenses. I think there are better guys maybe one-on-one, but Gobert runs the entire defense from the center spot. He makes the Jazz what they are defensively. And he's an incredible rim runner, finisher, but he knows when to step aside. It's perfect. He doesn't have to learn a jump shot to be valuable. And it's the kind of thing that in the NBA is dying, but if you do that singular job well, you could still be a stud. And it's something cool to see in a league where guys like Nikola Jokic are the new type of center. Joel Embiid, you got to be able to shoot, you got to be able to spread the floor, score on your own. Gobert doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need the ball, play ridiculous defense, dominate on that end, and then just set good picks, roll to the rim, finish on lobs and putbacks. It's not a difficult position to master, yet a lot of guys are dying out if they're not elite in it.
And it's true. And you know what? Also, someone in Orlando who used to be, who came out at one time very big and did not really pan out, was Nicola Vuchevich. He was really good for about 2 years, completely died out.
And he was a new school type center. He was a shooting center. That was something that was relatively new when he started doing it.
He doesn't have a supporting cast in Orlando. 36.2 field goal percentage. He actually did shoot a few threes, made 23.1% of them. 11.2 points per game last year, or actually in the postseason. That was his first time making the postseason.
I think his biggest contributor to his struggles has been the fact they've never had a point guard with him. Big men need a good lead guard to handle the ball and be able to dictate the offense to get it to a star big man. It's really hard for a star big man to dominate on his own. I mean, Vučević is a good player, but he was never super elite where you could rely on him to dominate on his own. He really would have benefited from one of the point guards Orlando's tried to cycle through there, really panning out around him.
DJ Augustine, Michael Carter-Williams. You don't have Markelle Fultz. You could try.
Go back to Emmanuel Mudiay.
Timofey Mozgov is on there too. I mean, you know, there's not a lot of players that Orlando has had.
They've been a lot of high picks, and they haven't been able to pan a lot of them out.
Ever since Dwight Howard left Orlando, it's been a revolving door for point guards for everyone other than really Vučević, who's been on that team I believe since 2011. He was also traded at the time, if I'm not mistaken. I think he did start his in Philadelphia. I believe that was the 3-team trade.
Yeah, you're right. He did play a season in Philly.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that was a part of the Dwight Howard trade.
Perhaps.
I think so. I think I have to look this up now, folks. I do apologize. If someone does have that answer, again, you're more than welcome to give us a call. 213-943-3594, Blog Talk Radio, I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Trying to figure out, I believe it was Dwight Howard trade to the Lakers at the time. It was Andrew Bynum. Iguodala went to the Nuggets. Bynum went to the Sixers. Unless that was a different deal. I have to take a peek at that. And I think that's what we're about to do right now. Aaron Aflalo. Yeah, and it was a part of that deal. Nicola Vuchevich went from Philly to Orlando. Orlando that year got Aaron Aflalo, Al Harrington, Mo Harkless, and Nicola Vuchevich.
They would have developed them right. That would have been something.
Christian Ienga. What a name. I remember that name years ago. What a player. What a player. Oh, do you sense the sarcasm in my voice? The NBA is going to be must-watch this year, folks. That's the way I see it, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, someone who doesn't really care for the NBA. You have multiple duos. Let's not forget, someone comes back who we have completely forgotten about in Victor Oladipo in Indiana, who just 2 years ago made his way onto a first team, the All-NBA first team. Indiana Pacers, 48-34 this past year. Such a good team after Paul George left. We keep talking about Oladipo, his injury, that was 2 years ago. They had a decent supporting cast.
Yeah, they got guys that can play roles. Miles Turner, a big man down low, block shots. That was back when he was there. Pretty much they've changed a lot of things around him, though. Sabonis was there, but he didn't really come into his own until last year. Now they have Malcolm Brogdon, Jeremy Lamb, T.J. Warren. They've been good, though, at, like, I don't want to say developing their own guys, because really Turner's the only guy that was really theirs, but finding guys that are falling out elsewhere that still have potential, bringing them in and making the best of them. Sabonis didn't have a great rookie year with the Thunder, so he was the one added in the Paul George trade and ended up being a much better player for Indiana. A guy like Jeremy Lamb isn't really getting valued, even though he's been playing well the last few years. He jumps in there. T.J. Warren has been good for the Suns. The Suns felt like they didn't want him. They bring him in. Malcolm Brogdon, Milwaukee didn't want to pay him, so they bring him in. They're doing a smart thing here about not, like, knowing their own situation that they're not going to get star players to come in free agency. So they're instead bringing on high potential guys to fit around the star that they already have from their previous trade.
Yeah, and not only that, also Indiana won that deal. I think we could say that a few years later.
Well, technically now the deal's not done. Paul George was traded for like 17 draft picks, right? We just went over this, so
that is true.
If those draft picks start panning out, it'll be a long-term play for the Thunder, but they could still win that trade. Victor Oladipo was never going to get the ball enough with the Thunder to blossom into what he was now, because so Westbrook was there, and that's just not how you play next to Westbrook. So I think Indiana did a lot of the work themselves in turning the two guys they got into stars. Not that the Thunder mishandled them or anything like that. I just don't think Sabonis was only a rookie. He needed to just develop naturally, and Oladipo didn't have really the opportunity. We've seen the way Orlando develops people. They're the ones who drafted Oladipo and weren't able to turn him into anything more than a good player. He was a good player with the Thunder, and now he's a star with Indiana. They know how to use people. They know how to develop. They're a well-run organization.
We talk about not developing people, not being able to play next to Russell Westbrook. How about the old duo of James Harden and Russell Westbrook reuniting. It's deja vu.
Yeah, I was
in Houston.
Very confused by Harden's affinity for wanting this trade to happen. I think to me that signals that Chris Paul spat was definitely big, and it was a lot bigger than they tried to make it out afterwards.
Public relations department kept it nice and quiet.
Yeah,
good job from them.
There's no way, because this fit doesn't make any sense. James Harden loves to have the ball in his hands. Sit there, dribble, lull this guy to sleep, pop a three over him. He's great at it. That's what he does. You're bringing in a guy who absolutely cannot shoot. You cannot play Russell Westbrook off the ball. The ball needs to be in his hands. Harden gets to play off of him. It's going to be a completely different experience for Harden. I can't imagine him seeing this and being like, this is good for him. Team-wise, they get a little better, but is this going to work? I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Interesting at the very least, but I don't see them winning a title with this. I don't think Russell Westbrook fits what the Rockets do. It's threes or nothing, and he doesn't shoot. It's going to be a very, very strange fit. He doesn't play great defense. It would
now you're gonna have two guys who don't play defense.
Yeah, Harden's become he's not a great defender, but he's not like a complete sieve like he used to be. You can play him. He's okay. And Westbrook, I guess you could probably put in that same mold. But having two of those guys in the backcourt, if you have to play a team like Portland, it's gonna happen. Those are two elite guards. You guys are gonna have to play defense and run your whole offense. It's gonna be very weird to see how things like that pan out.
I don't even know where to begin, where it goes, or in terms of who you could play on defense, who could defend, and in Mike D'Antoni's system, no less. And we know what Mike D'Antoni does is offense, offense, offense. There's no such thing as defense in his system. We know that with the Lakers.
This is going to be the Chip Kelly version of a basketball team, because these guys are going to run. It's going to be fast. That's one thing you'll get from Westbrook and Harden. They're going to fight for the rebounds and take off on fast breaks out of there, because now you have two guys that can absolutely fly. Chris Paul was the one thing holding that offense back, because he liked to be more deliberate. This is going to be run and gun team. They're going to run. They're going to be some high-scoring games. We'll see how that pans out. It didn't for Chip Kelly, but this is a different sport.
And you're also going to have the big man in Tyson Chandler coming in and helping things out when Clint Capella can't play, which might be a whole whopping 35 seconds
I think the best thing
in a game.
Chandler will bring is his locker room presence.
That is
He's
for sure.
A glue guy. He'll help teach defense, even though it's not going to be a big thing. His brain is going to be what helps them more than his actual physical ability. Because by now, he's a meh backup center at best. He was a guy I really was hoping would go to my Knicks and tutor Mitchell Robinson, because that would have been the perfect guy to bring in and tutor Robinson. But Chandler wanted to be on a contender, and I understand that. So,
Austin Rivers, Iman Shumpert, obviously a free agent. Can't believe that. Eric Gordon, some names. Clint Capella still there. Kenneth Faried, Gerald Green.
Yeah, it's not a good supporting cast.
PJ Tucker.
A good team. They were trying to go from a great team to a championship team, and while this makes them slightly more talented, I don't know if they're actually going to be better. I think they'll be maybe as good as they've been, and I don't know if that's good enough to get past some really good teams out west. We'll see. Things have to fall their way. They have to make this marriage in the backcourt work to the best it can to win a title. So,
I don't see it.
I wouldn't bet on it, but I wouldn't be shocked if they do figure it out. The two very talented players with a great coach, with a good supporting cast. I could see them being the best team in the West, but it would take a lot.
Reggie Bullock signed a 2-year deal about three days ago with the Knicks. Also, something that happened in the last week, something that was big in the NBA, Marcus Morris completely spurned the Spurs.
Nice.
And I don't know, it was I believe what it was a mutual handshake agreement.
Right, because that's what they all are.
They all are, right. And then he all of a sudden said, goodbye, I'm going to the Knicks. And I think what it was, if I'm not mistaken, according to ClutchPoints.com and ESPN.com, he chose to go for the money. 1 year, $15 million.
To be fair, less total money.
Yep, that's true. With the Knicks, instead of the 2-year, $20 million that he agreed to sign with the Spurs, with the second-year player option. Did he bet on himself? I think, truthfully, what he was trying to do was just get money.
Yeah, I mean...
He didn't care. He didn't care about playing. He didn't want... It's not that he didn't want to play. He just didn't care.
Yeah, I mean...
I don't think he cared at all.
At this point in his career, what's the difference at this point? I don't think you're winning a title with the Spurs, so why not go to the Knicks where...
The Spurs will not win a title for a long time.
Yeah, probably not.
And it really stinks.
But really what they're going to do is they can't rebuild that team because you have Greg Popovich. If you rebuild that team, he's going to want to go. So they're just going to fight and claw with what they have as hard as they can, to win as much as they can. DeRozan, Aldridge. Feel bad, but they had their run.
They did. They had their run for a majority of the beginning of the 21st century. Truthfully,
Basically, a 20-year run.
Yeah, they had a 20-year run, and now it's similar to, you look back at hockey standards, where the Detroit Red Wings had almost a 25, I think it was 24, 25 years that they made the playoffs straight.
Yep, it's basically the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Then they didn't want to rebuild, and they were like, no, we can keep doing this. And then everything fell apart. All the stars left, Babcock is gone, and they're in absolute cap hell because they signed a bunch of new players when they shouldn't have. They should have just tore it down.
Same
they
thing.
Had the streak going, so
Yeah.
they wanted to keep pushing things. And
same thing with the Spurs. Same exact thing with Spurs, because you trade away Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard. You do get DeMar DeRozan back. You do get a few conditional a conditional draft pick back, but not much. And we won't find out who wins that trade yet.
What? The Raptors lifted a trophy, dude.
They did, but no. The reason why, think about it. Because now you win the trophy, but do they have to tear it all down?
In Toronto, you mean?
In Toronto. I think they might have to tear it all down come, I don't know, January?
Well,
Can they contend? Will Pascal Siakam be the same? Was he a flash in the pan in the finals?
No, he's a great player. He's not Kawhi Leonard. He's not going to lead them into anything ridiculous, but
Just a few playoff years ago, Nick, someone that I want to bring up to you, in Bismack Biyombo, and someone that signed with the Orlando Magic for a massive contract, where Bismack Biyombo had an amazing playoff run with Toronto.
Completely different players, though.
Completely different players, for sure, but we haven't heard from him since.
No, he also went to the Orlando Magic.
He went to Orlando.
The NBA.
Yep.
But he got caught up in the whole cap spike, which allowed Kevin Durant to sign with Golden State. So everybody had a ton of money. He got paid way more than he was worth. He was basically a rebounding big man, played with some energy and a little bit of defense. He was not what Pascal Siakam is. He was a high-quality scoring option on a championship team. Huge difference than a role player.
That's fair. Well, he's now obviously this past year when he did sign that 4-year deal with Orlando. He was traded last year. I did forget to bring that up back to Charlotte. He was with Charlotte originally. Signed that deal with Toronto, that 2-year deal back in 2015. Yeah, I remember when Biyombo was on the Hornets, 2014. That was.
He was a Bobcat first.
He was a Bobcat. Yeah, he was a Bobcat. He was actually drafted by the Kings. Never played a minute with the Kings. But I think that the way that they have to rely on Siakam a lot more this year. They have to rely on him a lot more. Serge Ibaka is one of those press fours. One of the originals in Oklahoma City.
And he's the guy who always gets overlooked. They always talk about the big three, and Durant, Westbrook, and Harden. Absolutely, those three were stars.
I loved
Serge Ibaka was amazing.
He was. Well, and then they also had Kendrick Perkins as well.
He was not amazing.
He was not amazing. You had
they had Steve Adams on that team. They would have won so many titles. Yes. All they needed was a big center.
That's all they needed, and money was the problem.
Well, yeah, too many stars.
They couldn't afford it.
It didn't work.
Right, and unfortunately, it couldn't be the situation where it was a Big Five, like in Golden State.
Right, cap spike helped them.
The cap, not only did the cap spike help, but also where DeMarcus Cousins or Boogie Cousins came off of the torn Achilles in New Orleans, and he had to prove himself. And what better way to do it than win a title and most likely cash out in any other team? But now, unfortunately, that didn't happen. He's playing with a mini Big Three in LA. It doesn't really fit the mold to have, even though you did have, and I think I sent you this picture with Rajon Rondo, Anthony Davis, and DeMarcus Cousins.
Big Three.
The Big Three plus LeBron James. There is a lot of hope in LA, but then there's also the Clippers too. That a lot of analysts and myself say the Clippers are going to be better than the Lakers. That's just me. It's going to be a lot of fun in LA, in my opinion. A lot of fun in the NBA. But we, for now, are done with the NBA. Let's keep moving forward. The Calgary Flames in the NHL, they reached a deal between the city of Calgary and Alberta to replace the Saddle Dome. We will not see a second a second relocation in 10 years. 10 years ago, we saw the Atlanta Thrashers, or 9 years ago, rather, we saw the Atlanta Thrashers head to Winnipeg, pack their bags, and head north to become the 7th Canadian team. Calgary does not move to some of the places where people thought Seattle, possibly a team in Quebec City, Kansas City, Charlotte. Teams or places.
Charlotte? Oh, wait. That never. How did you just have 2 teams in North Carolina? They could barely have 1.
Charlotte was a rumor. That would have been something, but that was considered a rumor for Calgary to go to, and I don't think that would have ever panned out. Because obviously you have the team in Raleigh, the Carolina Hurricanes. It just doesn't work. But again, just saying what rumors said. They're staying. And Canada, in my opinion, the way that this is, should have more teams in Canada.
They got 7 and none of them can win anyway. How many more do we need up there?
I think one more. I think obviously now having Seattle coming into the league in 2021-22 is going to be awesome.
Yes, they're going to be outstanding.
And I think that now, and that's another thing, Ron Francis becoming the franchise's first ever general manager. Absolutely amazing choice. Similar to when George McPhee was named the general manager in Vegas.
Bigger than McPhee, though. This is a hockey legend who's also been an executive for a while. This is stuff.
He knows exactly what he's doing. He's got a lot of work ahead of him. All eyes are going to be on Seattle come 21-22, where the questions are going to be asked is that, can Seattle pull what Vegas did just 4 years prior?
I doubt it. You need a lot to break your way for that to work. Their plan was the right one in Vegas, plan for the future, and they just had a lot of things hit correctly. William Karlsson exploded into a great player. Marchessault wasn't a fluke like they thought he might have been. Riley Smith was a great player. Fleury and goal, you knew what you were getting. Their defensive end gelled really nicely. I mean, so many things broke their way. But what probably is the most underrated part of what they did is how they built the brand so quickly. The home atmosphere from the first game was insane there. The entertainment they put before the games, they've done everything right off of the ice as well as on the ice, and it made for an unbelievable way of bringing a team in. Seattle needs to look to that and do everything the right way outside of the ice, and it'll even make the product better when they start playing. It'll lead to better results.
Well, the one thing obviously that I think sparked all of that was the mass shooting in Vegas. That was their first game. The first game was the first sporting event, first event period in Vegas, and it just so happened to be the inaugural regular season game in Vegas, and it really. It stinks to say that played a factor in how good they were, but I think that due to those events, the team definitely rallied around the city. The team made sure that they could do something that year. Obviously, they made it to the Cup final, lost in 6 to to the Capitals. Was it 6?
It was 5.
It was 5, right. It was 5, my mistake. As soon as I said it, I was like, wait, no, that was 5. It stinks. It stinks, and I don't see Seattle doing that. And again, I don't want to say that it was because of the mass shooting that they rallied together. I just think that Seattle coming in, it's going to take them a little longer.
Yeah, I don't think.
I think a lot of it was luck as well.
Well, they sustained it the second year, so
they did. Well, then again, also that second year though, they did basically bulk up and they bought.
Yeah,
they spent to the cap.
Right, that's the thing. They were so well managed the first year that they had the ability to do that. Go from being a future-oriented team to, wow, we can turn this into a really quick win-now thing when we have some room around some young guys. So I see Seattle following the same mold of sticking to young players.
And now they're in cap
contracts. Yeah. I mean, they'll be more careful, I think, Seattle, in taking on bad contracts if they're too long. The way David Clarkson's got stuck with Vegas, you're going to be careful on that front. But I think they're going to play it the same way. Play the long-term game, and if things work out, they work out. Because another thing about expansion teams is that every single one of those guys plays with a chip on his shoulder. And that really creates some unbelievable things, and sports when guys are pissed. Look at the Islanders this past year. The team scored, and everyone put them at the bottom, and all of a sudden they come out and they're fighting and they're clawing. You put a good coach out there with a tough group of guys, things can happen. And I heard Seattle's interview that they had with Ron Francis that he wants an experienced coach. So come next summer, the biggest name coach out there, they're going to be out there for him. We don't know if Mike Babcock might not survive another year in Toronto if they don't get out of the first round. That could be a big name that ends up there. We'll see what happens across the league, but they're going to look for a big name coach. They're going to try and bring in a good personality. And with a good coach, a good GM, and plenty of time to scout and strategize for the expansion draft, this could be a team that ends up competing in year one. We don't know. We'll see.
I think I do agree, but I disagree, and the reason why I do believe is that a lot of the way that it happened in Vegas is that a lot of it had to do, and I hate to say it, is with the shooting too. It's that they all rallied around each other, and I feel like that definitely boosted a lot of what they were building, and I think it forced them to kind of build a little bit quicker and to gel. And I think also you got the right locker room guys together, along with the way that they played. You have a whole bunch of guys that have never played together. A coach that was fired in Florida following a year that, well, obviously he didn't get fired after he made the playoffs, that, 2015-16 year where they lost to the Islanders, but it was the year after where they didn't start well. You have a coach who could not get those group of guys, Jonathan Huberdeau, Alexander Barkov, Aaron Ekblad. You couldn't get them to all mesh, but you got this whole team to mesh. But I think
Riley Smith, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So now you have those two guys that come in there. You also have him come in here from Florida. Those three guys who come in here, and now they are implementing.
Vegas owes Florida one hell of a fruit basket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of fruit baskets, that's for sure, and I think that the way that everything worked out there, I don't know if it's going to be able to work out so quick in Seattle, but we'll see. It's going to be their third team, and their first time that they've had three teams since the Seattle Supersonics left in 2008. Crazy stuff.
Yep.
Really, really crazy stuff. But it's 6:05 here on the East Coast here in New York, and one thing that I do want to bring up here is that my Eagles have signed Darren Sproles to a one-year deal, and he's coming back. And I think he really, really, really wants that Super Bowl ring, and I think he wants to be able to lift it with his teammates. And I think that 2 years ago when the Eagles did win, I think that it wasn't good enough for him because he did tear his AC. He basically blew out his entire left knee against the Giants in Week 3. Unfortunately, he didn't play again, and that was his farewell tour. Couldn't do it, and I think that if he would have been healthy the rest of the year, they would have won the Super Bowl, and he would have went out on top, and that's what he wants to do. He is, in my opinion, one of the best running backs of all time, Hall of Famer, I do believe.
Best of all time? Darren Sproles? Come on.
Okay.
Exciting, great player.
I'm not saying I'm
maybe.
not saying he's Barry Sanders or he's a. I'm not saying anything
said
like
best
that.
of all time, bro. That's that category. You can't just throw that name out there.
Well, Darren Sproles, for what he's done, is remarkable. Going to the Chargers, in 14 years, 5'6". He's a little man.
Thanks. That's my height.
He's a little man.
Thanks.
You're welcome. 2-time first-team All-Pro. He set the NFL record for
special teams.
Fine.
Huh?
Doesn't change the fact that he's a Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
I get it. Maybe. He was a good offensive player, too. He was a guy that everyone would want in a small role. He wasn't a star running back, but he was the best change of pace back in the league for a while.
Okay, we'll call it one of the best special teamers in the NFL.
Yeah, I would say so. He's a guy, every time he touches the ball on a punt or kick return, you're excited.
He set the Eagles franchise record with 4 last year. Tied that with Deshaun Jackson, which actually is something to discuss also, but we'll get to that in a minute, maybe in about a month. But Deshaun Jackson and Darren Sproles on the same team. Punt returns, kick returns. They're both punt returners. You have elite punt returners. 2 of them on your squad. As we did say earlier, the NFL, it is sometimes hard to watch with certain things happening in terms of decisions that are made administratively, certain decisions that are made via front office, via players, decisions that unfortunately are out of our hands, decisions that could change people's lives, kids' lives. Certain things are, it hurts with things, and it just hits me with Tyreek Hill. I know we already discussed that, but it kind of hurts a little bit. Let's speak about Major League Baseball. We're at the MLB. Just after the All-Star break, Pete Alonso wins the Home Run Derby. American League wins the...
Did we pick guys we thought were going to win on our last podcast?
We did not. We might have.
We talked about it.
We did. Bit. Actually, we did. Yeah, I think you said...
I did pick Pete Alonso.
You did pick
Wait a minute, we have this on video.
You did.
Yes.
Yeah. We did
Let's
pick...
go.
I
completely forgot about that.
You did pick Pete Alonso, and I chose Vlad Guerrero.
Real.
Yeah, you did.
Good calls from both of us.
You did, yeah. Well, even though, obviously, that was... Vlad Guerrero broke the first-round record of 29 home runs in the first round, broke Josh Hamilton's 2008 Yankee Stadium record.
Yeah.
Obviously, the things have changed with the rules since 11 years ago at Yankee Stadium. But it's time to watch Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
It's time to watch them, and the reason why is because, well, things with other sports right now are getting a little bit, they're slowing down. It is July 19th. Not only is it July 19th, we have about another 2.5 weeks before the Hall of Fame game for football comes along. Baseball's second half. The Yankees and the Rockies are tonight. 3-game set at Yankee Stadium. It's a heat warning here on Long Island, here in the tri-state area. They're going to be playing in 98-degree weather tomorrow with a heat index up to 115 degrees. I don't know how that's going to happen, but they're going to do it. The Rockies are not used to it, obviously. Used to playing in sub-zero, negative-degree weather. Almost, well, a mile above sea level, mile-high city. What do you have to look forward to in the second half?
Trade deadline. The big-name pitchers out there that can be moved in 12 days. Guys like Madison Bumgarner, who have won titles. Guys like Noah Syndergaard, who probably isn't that available, but for the right package, everyone's available, and that's a big-name guy who could completely change the fortunes of a franchise. There are a lot of really fun names out there, and a lot of good teams hunting around for pitching. It's going to be very interesting, and I love the trade deadline. It's almost like free agency day all over again, because everything goes down in the span of basically 24 hours at the very end. One time.
I think the cool thing, honestly, is the best part is that Marcus Stroman is, I think, in the American League, the #1 pitcher on the market.
Well, it depends how available Trevor Bauer is.
That is true. Well, Trevor Bauer, in my opinion, he's seen his better days. Lately, the Cleveland Indians have rallied back into the top spot in the Central. Trevor Bauer, let's not forget, Corey Kluber is also still out.
True.
Trevor Bauer is the #1. I don't think, Nick Partain, that the Indians sell anybody. I don't see it. I simply don't see it, and why? Because right now they have won, I believe it is 8 out of their last 10 games, I believe. I'll get you the exact standing in a moment. But Cleveland has done amazing. Francisco Lindor. Oh, sorry, they're 4 games behind Minnesota. What am I saying? They are in the top spot of the wild card. How can I forget Minnesota? Minnesota has been on fire. They're going to be buyers, for sure. 59-36 in Minnesota. They're 8-2. Cleveland, is that right? What I said? They've won 8 of their last 10 games, and they've won 5 straight. Their differential in runs, +40. Something to look against right now is that Cleveland against at or above 500 record teams, they're 15-21 on the year. They've played 5 more home games at home, 5 more home games than they have away games. They're 10 games over 500 at home, 5 games over 500 on the road. And they're leading the wild card right now. They're tied with Tampa and Oakland. I don't see Oakland as buyers.
Yeah, not in the traditional sense. They might pick up a very depth-type piece, some no-name back in the rotation starter, because Oakland is Moneyball. They don't have the cash to go out and buy big guys or bring in a Madison Bumgarner and pay them for the rest of the year. Like, they're much smarter about the way they run things. They are constantly dealing with young players coming up and having them play that way, and then having to sell them off when they get too expensive. So unless they really, really think they have a great team, they're not going to go out and try and acquire a big name piece to put them over the top. This is a team that, if they bring in a decent rotation arm or a decent bat, maybe they could squeak into the playoffs, get to that wild card game, but we don't know how really competitive they are. After Manaea got suspended, it kind of ruined that.
Well, they did bring up somebody, or trade for somebody rather, in
It's Homer Bailey. Right? That's what I mean.
I was going to say Homer Bailey, yeah. And that was the joke, because Homer Bailey has been absolutely atrocious in the time when he was with Cincinnati. At the time, he was good. He had good times, and we've seen better from Homer Bailey. I think, truthfully, and the best part is tonight, in 2 hours, Oakland, Minnesota. In Minnesota. Marwin Gonzalez, who was on the previous Houston Astros team that won the World Series 2 years ago signed I think it was a 3-year deal. It was a 3-year deal in Minnesota. Joe Mauer retires, which I think, in my opinion, was long overdue. We haven't really seen or heard from Miguel Sano.
No, he had that huge peak and then really tailed off. I mean, he's back with the big club he's playing, but just hasn't been able to return to the form that he once was, which is sad because he was super exciting. He was hitting bombs in Minnesota when they opened that park up, and then things just kind of went awry.
Yep, and they have a lot of solid players, and someone that is overlooked all the time is Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz comes in there into Minnesota, and currently right now he's got 18 home runs, 270 batting average, 48 RBIs, 69 hits, and the thing too is that he's hitting the baseball.
That's what he does. He's a hitter.
He is a hitter. He's not a home run hitter. Well, he is a home run hitter, but in certain parts.
He's batting 270. Like, this is the guy who's going up there and batting 220, just hitting dongs.
Yep, and he's not. Not only that, Minnesota is not a home run. It's a pitcher's park.
Yeah.
It is not. It's completely different from the Metrodome years ago. Marwin Gonzalez, Max Kepler, Jose Barrios. 3.10 ERA, 8-5 in 122 full innings pitched. Jake Odorizzi, Michael Pineda, yeah, I'm saying that name, who gained a ton of weight. 6-5 with a 4.38 ERA. Yes, he's not the same Michael Pineda that he was. But in his last 7 games, sub-3 ERA, 2-2. Okay, he has 13 earned runs, 37 strikeouts. Listen, it's better than his last 15, where he was 4-5 with a 4.63 ERA.
Yeah, he's been pitchable.
He has been pitching decent. And I think you're right. I think Oakland is not the buyer. Minnesota's the buyer. The Yankees are the buyers. I don't know how much more the Yankees could buy. I think if anybody was to buy somebody, it's going to be the Yankees, and it's going to be Max Scherzer.
I don't think he's going anywhere. The Nationals have been winning again.
That's exactly what we were talking about, and as I was swallowing my saliva, I was about to say that. So thank you very much. My goodness.
Yeah, what a surge from them. Completely written off. Thought they were dead. Bryce Harper left them hanging, and now...
they're better than the Phillies.
That's a better record. I could have told you that. I picked Washington to win the division at the beginning of the year, which looked really bad for a while, but now they're relatively close. They're nipping at Atlanta's heels, and they're hot. What happens when you have great pitching? They have outstanding pitchers at the top of their rotation. And when those guys are going, with the young bats that they have, they were able to cover for Bryce Harper, who wasn't that good last year.
And not only...
They had a full-time Juan Soto and Victor Robles. It's not that hard to fill in.
And not only Victor Robles, Juan Soto, Adam Eaton, who really, people do not understand this.
Yeah,
and
he was out for a whole year. He was forgotten.
Yep, and not only was he forgotten, but years ago when that trade was made for Adam Eaton, and Lucas Giolito went the other way to Chicago, to the White Sox, which obviously is now it's looking... Well, right now it's a win. It's a win-win for both sides because, and you wouldn't really have found out about that until Adam Eaton played a role on the team full-time. At the time, you had full-time players: Jason Worth, Denard Span, Bryce Harper. 2 out of those 3 are one, Jason Worth, my favorite player of all time. Well, favorite outfielder of all time. Obviously, Bernie Williams is the top, but Jason Worth has my heart. Don't ask why.
It's the hand.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. Adam Eaton was traded for this exact reason. that nobody really speaks about. You have to load up on the outfield, because if Bryce Harper leaves, Bryce Harper not being traded at the deadline hurt. It's a lot like John Tavares and the Islanders, but he didn't say he wanted to stay. He just shrugged it off and said, "We're playing every game, playing one game at a time. That's it." He didn't say, "I want to stay. We're not going to get into the Islanders, but we're going to stick to here." I'm sorry I said that, but my heart...
It's a comparable situation.
It is. It's a comparable situation because they were both not traded at the deadline.
Star players going into free agency not knowing exactly what was going to happen because they didn't have a contract. You can say whatever you want, but nothing was on paper, so...
They are 2 games ahead in the wild card, 7 games over 500, 5.5 behind Atlanta, and Atlanta's on a 3-game losing streak. And
including one of those games to Washington.
And on top of it, tonight, Game 2 of a 4-game set. Atlanta versus Washington tonight in about 40 minutes. If Washington... Well, and on top of it, yesterday, that was a spanking. And Steven Strasburg can hit. Yeah. He had a 3-run home run, and he also had... So I think he had almost 6 RBIs yesterday. Or 5 RBIs. He had... I believe he had a 2-run single, and then he had a 3-run home run. He did absolutely amazing. He can hit the bat. They're 7-3 in their last 10. And Washington right now, Ryan Zimmerman still there, still doing a good job.
Incredible.
And which is nuts. Because you know what? Years ago, when Anthony Rendon came up, who's another one who has been hitting quietly 300 since the All-Star break.
He's one of the more underrated hitters in baseball. That guy's incredible.
He is unbelievable. And you know what? And I didn't have a lot of hope for him. The bullpen has been great, surprisingly. Recently. Let me rephrase that. Recently. Then they brought up Johnny Venters. My goodness. Throwback Thursday. Or Flashback Friday. And Fernando Rodney, who is a 6th-inning guy now. Unfortunately, really, he should be behind Sean Doolittle, but that's not the case anymore. Adam Eaton, the starting right fielder. Gerardo Parra. Oh my goodness, I can't speak right now.
Joey hasn't taken Spanish in years.
No. Surprisingly, I got A's in Spanish in the 7th grade. Gerardo Parra, my goodness. Former Arizona Diamondback. Victor Robles in center field. Juan Soto in left field. They are set in the outfield now.
Yeah.
But Adam Eaton at the time, you had guys like Michael A. Taylor, who was at the time, he broke out. He was a flash in the pan. He's now back in AAA, down in Norfolk. Syracuse, rather. Ryan Zimmerman, first base. Brian Dozier, long-lost wonder from Minnesota. And Trey Turner.
He leaves Minnesota, now they hit a ton of home runs. At the time, he was the only guy they're hitting. They ship him off, now everyone can hit. Kind of an ironic scenario.
Trey Turner, one of the best, just a couple of years ago, one of the best shortstops to come up into the league. Has been average so far. And on top of it, the rotation, the top 3, which we could see in the playoffs. 3-man rotation, Strasburg, Corbin, and Sanchez. My goodness. Strasburg, Corbin, Scherzer. Anibal Sanchez has been absolutely horrible. But Strasburg, Corbin, and Scherzer, Washington, I believe, stays status quo. We're going to take a quick break right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network and Blog Talk Radio. We'll be right back on the opposite side of this break for In Time of the 631 Sports Update right here. Primetime Rundown. We'll be right back. We welcome you back to Blog Talk Radio and the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network for the final 30 minutes of Primetime Rundown alongside my guy Nick Partain. I'm Joey Jarzynka. If you're just joining us now, the third man on our team, Tyler Adell, is no longer with us. He had to step down due to personal issues. We do wish him well, and hopefully he does get back to our table or to our set soon. But our 6:31 sports update, the quote savage tirade from Aaron Boone gave him a 1-game suspension yesterday. I personally think that was absolutely amazing what he did. He stood up for his people. He stood up for his players.
Totally worth it.
And
no idea why he got suspended, but totally worth it.
He did well, and I don't know what the deal was with that. Why he got suspended is beyond me. I don't know exactly. And
he made contact with the bill of his cap.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was that. So, and basically, that's what former manager Joe Torre said. You can't do that, and he basically said, quote, explicitive savages. Someone made it.
Right.
Someone made it now as a T-shirt, and it went viral.
Yeah.
And it was sold online. I wouldn't be surprised if Stan's across the street on 161st Street has it.
I could see it.
Or on River Avenue has it. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Next time you and I, or you or I go there, we might have to check that out. So tonight he's going to be serving his suspension.
Which, I mean, front office does most of the managing anyway. So I think
Well,
they'll be all right for one day.
well, I mean, this is not the Mets, but the Mets. The
Mets do it unintentionally.
The Mets do it.
The Yankees
right.
basically hire Boone because they're like, you're going to listen to him.
Exactly right. The next thing on our sports update also is Tiger Woods missing the cut of the British Open or the Open Championship. He said, quote, "I just want to go home."
We all.
After missing the cut, well, apparently his back issues have gotten worse. So he was 1 under par, 70, include bogeys on the final 2 holes. And this is the first year in almost 70 years that the Open Championship, formerly known as the British Open, is being played outside of the country of England and being played in Rory McIlroy's native country or native home in Ireland. So we'll see what happens. The FedEx playoffs begin in a few short weeks at Liberty National in New Jersey. I don't know. We'll see if he's going to be there. I don't know. He just won the Masters a couple months ago. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with him. The next thing that I want to bring up here, and I know this is a little early for college basketball, but because I do cover it, this is something that I do have to say. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights released their schedule. Well, not released it officially, but
the men's team, right? The
men's team, correct. And their men's team is not the greatest anyway. Have not been for a very long time, for as long as I can remember. Since leaving the Big East, since joining the Big Ten, you have a lot of competition, obviously. Their schedule looks like this unofficially. They start off against Bryant. They play 2 days after against Niagara, then Drexel, then St. Bonaventure of the A10 in Toronto, Stephen F. Austin, NJIT, UMass. They're at Pitt. They host Seton Hall in the Garden State Classic, Lafayette, and to round it all off, Division II's Caldwell. College basketball fans out there, for someone that covers the Big East, that covers college basketball, that is a sports information director at an NEC school, I'll say this on the record: you're not making the NIT. You're not making anything with the Division II team to round off your non-conference schedule.
I thought they were going to play the local high school after that.
It doesn't make any sense.
Terrible. It's
now,
embarrassing.
and I think you and I spoke about this last year, and college basketball is not your thing. It's the NBA. Mine's the opposite, but now, we're both
We're a team.
Now we are a team, right? Exactly. So now you're going to learn a little bit about this. I'm going to learn a little about more of the NBA. But I think I told you this, and I think I yelled at you for no apparent reason, but I was just so heated and in the moment. Where St. John's, when they released their schedule last year, and they played the entire Northeast Conference, and they played St. Francis Brooklyn, beat them by 45. Played Sacred Heart, beat them by 30. Played Wagner. Played Bowling Green. Schools like that, you can go 12-0 and almost, you were the last team into the field of 64. They were the 68th team.
Yep.
They were the 68th team, Nick.
Yeah,
and not only that, but you know what? In my opinion, you took a page out of St. John's book. And did you learn anything from that, especially in the more competitive Big Ten?
Nope. They just want to stop being an embarrassment, win a couple games, feel good about themselves.
You're not winning against Seton Hall. Seton Hall is going to be a top 15 team in the country. And I know, obviously, we're not at that point yet. We'll get, we're going to have guests on for college basketball season, and that's the year that I make my dollars. But Seton Hall, Michigan State, December 1st at the Prudential Center, live on Fox, most likely. A game to watch, a game to be at, a game to cover, mark my words. Could potentially be a top 15 battle, number 1 Michigan State, who knows? And we'll say a top 15 Seton Hall team with Miles Powell returning. There's a lot to be discussed with college basketball. We won't get into that anymore. Nick, what's the next thing we move on to?
How about something we don't talk about much on here, because it's really not the biggest thing going on in this country most days, but on a downtime, it's something to bring up. There's a big soccer game tonight on ESPN. MLS battle between two teams in LA. Sounds familiar, kind of like the NBA, but LAFC, the unequivocal best team in MLS, is playing against their crosstown rivals, the LA Galaxy, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who's, quite frankly, the most talented player in the league. Even though he's not putting up the biggest numbers, that goes to the striker for LAFC, Carlos Vela. This will be a fun matchup. The game last year, one of their games against each other was Zlatan's debut. He had an incredible game with 2 incredible goals and ended in a draw, but just the excitement these two teams bring. It's a rivalry. It's 2 of the best teams. The Galaxy have all this history. LAFC is a relatively new team, but they're the better team this year. It should be an incredible game. It's 10 p.m. It's on ESPN. You don't have to go find it on some random network. It should be a really fun, entertaining game. Even if it's just to watch Zlatan, who is so incredible, so enigmatic. The things that he says, he called himself a Ferrari amongst Fiats in MLS. Even though he's not putting up the best numbers in the league, he said that because Vela is in his prime as a 29-year-old, that when Zlatan was 29, he was playing in Europe against the best of the best. So he's talking a lot of shit. And now he's got Vela here coming up against him as having a better year. Zlatan's going to want to put on a show on national TV. It's going to be a fun game to watch.
LAFC, 46 points.
They're destroying them.
And LAFC, it's very funny. LAFC, I remember when I was in Los Angeles when they announced that the Chargers were moving to LA. The Rams were moving to LA. I was there for both years, same exact time period. And I took a tour of the Coliseum, which is where they play next to. And I remember seeing LAFC. What is this? And I knew it was for MLS, but I didn't know that they were really expanding Major League Soccer like this. And it's absolutely surreal from what we've seen, where at one point Vancouver was a top team. The tide has changed. Everything has changed. LAFC, 14, 4, and 2, win, draw, loss. Their goal differential is 36 over, plus 36.
by comparison, the second best goal differential is New York City FC, +9. It's absurd what LAFC is doing in the league right now. To have 20 games played and only have lost 2 of them, with only 4 draws, meaning you've won 14 of your 20 games, is unheard of. They're absolutely destroying the league. It's almost unprecedented. Atlanta was incredible last year, but they weren't this far and away the best team.
I think just by working in USL League 2 and seeing some of these things, it's very obvious, in my opinion, LAFC wins the MLS this year.
Yeah, it would take something incredible to knock them off. Their strongest foe is probably going to be one of the ones out of their conference. Seattle, every single year, is tough. They play well at home. They play well in the playoffs. They win games every year in the playoff time. And the new format this year in the playoffs being one and done, Seattle maybe can get lucky and clip LAFC in a conference final matchup. The Galaxy, too, are kind of a strange team. In 20 games, they only have 1 draw. They've been very win or lose, up or down. They're extremely talented. Zlatan is one of the best players in MLS, if not the best player. But they've been so inconsistent and enigmatic. They're another team that if they get hot and go on a run in the playoffs, it'd be a really fun playoff matchup between those two sides.
It's a lot going on in the MLS. MLS actually, in my opinion, has completely ballooned to a completely different league. Not only that, they're
growing.
They're growing. That's yeah.
Cincinnati is an expansion team this year. Nashville is going to be a team next year. These are big cities bringing in teams. Excitement, hype. It's obviously not on the level of the big 4 sports in this country, but it's working its way into.
They're trying.
The fans of those teams are die-hard. I was at the New York Red Bulls New York City FC game this past weekend. The Red Bull supporter sections were packed. They were loud. They were chants the whole game. The New York City FC supporters in their section were loud, packed the sections. These fans really care about their teams, even though the masses don't care as much. I think it'll build as time goes on, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. These games are also really fun to watch when they're good teams. It's not... Soccer gets this awful rap of being incredibly boring, but when you really sit down and watch it, it's a nice sport because there's no commercials. It's one of those things where you watch the NFL or the MLB and there's so many breaks, mound visits, timeouts, commercials. Soccer is not that. It is 45 straight minutes plus some extra time, halftime, and then 45 minutes plus extra time. There are no downtime.
The most popular sport in the world, and it's slowly becoming here. It's slowly coming here to the United States. Something that I want to touch upon heading into the final 16 minutes of our show. Sportsnet Canada has reported that the budget for the new Raiders Stadium in Las Vegas has now risen to $1.9 billion. It's on pace to surpass the Cowboy Stadium. The 65,000 seat stadium is currently being built on the Strip. Should be ready, I'd say, next year. Taxpayers are paying $750 million. There are another $40 million in construction additions that include certain additions such as adding 20 more suites, a field-level club area, quote, to be paid for by personal and club seat sales that weren't a part of the original budget.
I think they're seeing what happened with the Vegas Golden Knights and understanding this could be an insanely rabid fan base. Build an incredible arena, bring these people in, make it a huge home field advantage. You're going to have a brand new fan base here football-wise. Do the best you can. Make this thing a freaking awesome stadium. Make it top of the line, state-of-the-art, a ton of people, pack them in, great amenities. They could really build one heck of a brand out there if they do this right. And they're understanding that They might even get lucky that some of the rabid current Raider fans from Oakland will make their way down because they're one of the really most underrated fan bases in sports. Raider fans are awesome. They are crazy. They are electric.
They have one more year in the black hole. One more year in Oakland, where there was many rumors saying they would be playing in AT&T Park, or rather Oracle Park, in San Francisco, where the Giants play. They'd be playing on the baseball field. That wouldn't work. Also, San Antonio was another one. I don't really know where. In the Alamo Dome. I don't really know how that would work. Again, $1.9 billion, $750 million. The taxpayers are going to be paying this. And you're right. And I think, Nick, that what Vegas Golden Knights have done, and now the Raiders could do the same thing. Also, UNLV. Obviously, they're the baby of the two that are going to be there, the Raiders and the Golden Knights. You also have tourists that go to Vegas. You have gamblers that go to Vegas. You have many, many people that go to Las Vegas to gamble for bachelor parties, bachelorette parties. Obviously, Nashville is the latter, but you do see some crazy things. Las Vegas is going to be, in my opinion, the next... Las Vegas and Nashville. Two of the places that I just said. Bachelor and bachelorette parties. They are going to be the next two places for professional teams. That includes baseball, basketball. Basketball, I don't know so much about in Vegas because they already have the summer league. I don't see it being full-time there. Then they would probably move the summer league out of there to not baseball. Not basketball. I don't know if they would have full year-round basketball. I don't know.
Maybe. We'll see. Give it time.
And the summer league, they do well. They play in MGM Arena.
I don't know. Maybe they could squeeze basketball team into Vegas' arena.
Well, they're not looking to currently, now, expand.
Well, it doesn't necessarily be an expansion. It could always be a team that they look to move.
It's true.
Base isn't doing well. Seattle was thrown out of nowhere, basically.
Yep.
You never know.
Something that I want to conclude this episode number 3 with is a Sportsnet interview with Toronto Maple Leafs forward and right winger Mitchell Marner, who said on the record that he hopes for things to work, but he may have to sit out.
I mean, the man wants to get paid. He's worth a lot of money. Toronto's trying to short arm him, being they've paid other guys. They have a ton of guys they want to pay. They want to make their team as good as possible. Toronto's doing what they're supposed to be doing, trying to get your guy at the lowest number, but Marner's not going to budge. He watched them go out, bring in John Tavares as a free agent, soak up a lot of the money available to him and the other young guys that were already performing well there. And I think below the surface, it rubbed him the wrong way. He wants his money. He went out and spent it on some guy who wasn't here, who didn't come up through the system, who he didn't draft, who hasn't been busting his butt here. Now you're going to shortchange me because of it? He wants to make sure he gets paid. He would love to stay. He'd love to play with that team. It's a great system for him. He's going to put up obscene numbers. The fan base is rabid. He wants to stay. He doesn't want to go somewhere else, especially because he doesn't really have his pick of the litter. It's not like he's an unrestricted free agent. But if he's not going to get paid, he's going to try and get either A, the shortest term deal possible with Toronto, and then get out of there and get to a team that really wants to have him and pay him, or he's going to sign a big offer sheet somewhere else and hope Toronto doesn't match it. But one way or another, he's going to get himself paid, either now or in a few years down the line.
I agree completely for sure. And Mitchell Marner definitely he deserves all of it. I also think that Toronto has completely destroyed themselves in terms of the cap, and I don't believe Mitchell Marner will be playing another minute with the Leafs. They don't have the cap space. If they do find a way to make this work, it's not going to last long at all. I think personally that signing Tavares hurt them. I think that also the way that Toronto went about signing Tavares hurt their chances in signing the rest of them long term. Yeah, you signed Kasperi Kapanen to I believe it was a 3-year deal. But then again, you're on year number 4 of Austin Matthews and Tavares' combined $22.634 million, not including William Nylander's. We'll round it up to $7 million. And on top of it, at that point in time, not a one defenseman will be signed. Mitchell Marner's 22 years old. He wants a short-term deal. He wants it to be a lot of money. He wants it to surpass Austin Matthews. Did Toronto make a mistake in signing Matthews first? No.
No, they got him.
They got him at a bargain.
Right. The number they have for him now is a franchise center at his age. They got him long term. No problem.
But did they have to pay Tavares?
Well, to get him, yeah. And it's hard to not go after one of the probably top 20 players in the league when he's out there.
And top 5 centers in the league, too.
They hope at the very least in year 1 that it would be amazing. They go to at least the conference finals. First round flame out is what's really putting the hex on everything. If this was a team that was either in the conference finals or in the Stanley Cup finals, there might be a chance Mitch Marner is a little more lenient right now. But the fact the team isn't having success might be making him change his mind a little bit. Like, listen, I want to get paid one way or another. You're not shortchanging me here because you paid so many other guys. We're not even that good a team. He can't sit there and think about them adding that one more piece to put them over the top. He's trying to get his.
And they only have $8.5 million in salary cap space. They have $3 million without Nathan Horton's $5.3 million. So they have a total of $9 million on the cap in salary cap room. That Sportsnet interview, obviously, he did say multiple times it's a pretty big thing. Quote, every goal here is to be at training camp. We've still got a lot of time until that happens, end quote. They asked him what his thoughts were about, or what William Nylander told him about dealing with this. Was, quote, just stay out of it, enjoy your summer. And he's trying to just stay calm with it. But he's also been trying to stay out of the talks online, on Twitter, on Instagram, on all social media. He's trying to stay out of it, he says.
Which is a smart thing to do. Let your agent handle it. Enjoy your summer.
He's a kid. He's 22 years old. He's 2 years younger than me, 3 years younger than you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard to see what they want to do, the Leafs. And not only the Leafs, but Mitchell Marner. He's not getting paid $12 million in Toronto. And if they do, they'll have about $3 million. They'll be $3 million over the cap. Does Nylander get traded? You put Zach Hyman, who tore his ACL in the first round of the playoffs, on the injured reserve, long-term injured reserve, so that puts $2.25 million on the long-term injured reserve. But then when he comes back, now we're playing shuffle the line mates with John Tavares again. And in my opinion, I don't care if he plays with Andrew McDonald for all I care. But what I know is that the Toronto fans even though I don't like Toronto, their fans, they haven't won a cup since 1967. There's a lot of work to do. Kyle Dubas has a lot to work with. Does not have a lot to work with, rather. And now it's beginning to come into fruition that Mitchell Marner really will not be at training camp. This could be a Nylander. This could be a Hampus Lindholm type issue. This could be a very, very big deal where if at some point, I believe there's that deadline, Nick, and tell me if I'm wrong. Last year, William Nylander was paid $12 million, and that's what it was. He was paid $6 million, or I believe it was $7 million. But the cap hit, because of the date that he signed the contract, it was $12 million. And you cannot have that.
Yeah, no,
they can't do that. In my opinion, you trade his rights to Carolina or to somebody who can sign him for that term. Trade him to Colorado, even though they have their own mess to deal with. And it's a good mess to deal with Colorado.
The only problem with trading him is you should have done it by now. If you didn't think you were going to be able to sign him, reading this on is only hurting you. Teams have used their cap space already. Like you hurt yourself big time by waiting this long if your intention was always going to be to try and move him. I don't think they will do that. I don't think they should do that. I think they should be trying to do everything humanly possible to bring him in. He's an all-world talent. If he wants a short-term deal, give it to him. If he wants more than Matthews, give it to him. He's worth it. You're trying to win titles now. Stop playing around. You got to pay the guy. He's worth every penny.
But you're not going to be able to pay him, which is the problem. Or the teams that I look at right now that can afford at $12 or potentially $13 million, the Flyers, the Jackets, the Avalanche, the Devils, the Senators, and the Jets.
90 seconds.
The Winnipeg Jets have a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
and they still have to pay Patrick Laine.
Right, they have Laine and Kyle Connor need contracts.
So, forget them. Do the Devils throw an offer sheet? Do the Devils trade for his rights? The Devils are trying to keep Taylor Hall.
Imagine Taylor Hall and Mitch Marner on a line with Jack Hughes.
60 seconds.
You have a lot of time. But at the same time, not a lot of time. My final thought, Mitchell Marner, it's very obvious. You're not getting paid your $12 million. Either budge or request a trade out of there. There's a lot of problems in Toronto. It may not look like it. It's very obvious. You only have $8 million in cap space.
I'll go the other way. I think they end up getting him signed, and I think it's before the season starts. I don't think this is a Nylander situation. They saw how much that hurt his play during the year.
And not only, but the problem is who do you have to trade to keep under the cap? Because you don't have you have one defenseman that signed after this year, and that is Morgan Riley. As, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard, 10 seconds left here on Blog Talk Radio and I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We cannot thank you all enough for joining us here this afternoon, or this late evening rather, here on Blog Talk Radio and on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. For Nick Partain, I'm Joey Jarzynka, and for all of us at the Primetime Rundown, good night.
Watch soccer.